I'd like to call the Bristol Energy Committee board meeting to order on December 19th, 2018. Looking at the agenda, we have an appointment tonight. We have Victor Veve. Or Veve, is it Veve? Veve, from Green Lantern Solar. And he's here to talk to us about potential solar options for the town, specifically on
The landfill.
our landfill. So, take it away.
Well, you want to go right now?
Yeah.
So, I came up with some presentations.
Okay.
This is like a PowerPoint on paper, and we've offset our carbon footprint, so we can print stuff.
Good. We were actually talking about that last night with the amount of paper we're having to deal with.
But I can send you this. So there's a couple things I want to give you. That's the. I got an intro letter that
Okay.
I can share with you.
Want me to pass it around?
You can have that one, but the other ones are double-sided.
Do we want to just say in the future to email you and you'll email us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can email you all of this.
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah.
typical follow-along
Okay.
presentation if you want to read it at
Yeah.
home. Sometimes people don't like reading the digital
Yeah.
stuff.
Paper is still.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I made this is a look at here's just a representation of the system and the system size that we're shooting for. Let me give you some production ideas. This is by no means a set in stone. This is just a very quick look at what we believe is the possibilities for production. So I don't know how deep you want me to go on net metering, because as an energy committee you probably understand net metering. So there's basically two proposals here. The first proposal would be to come to the town and the select board and ask to enter into an option to lease, which we've done with a bunch of capped landfills, both all over the state of Vermont. We're a Vermont company from Vermont, and we have about 50 to 60 operating assets, and we're building 7 right now that will be done by the end of January. And we're continuing to build the cycle. There's ones in different parts of development. So there's an opportunity not only on the net metering side for the town of Bristol to net meter any bills that you don't already have net metered, because we have operating facilities with looking for off takers basically that are not the landfill. So this basically just runs through the project, being a ground mount, most likely will be a ballasted system on the cap. We've done, we're just completing Cambridge landfill, Randolph town. I can get you a list, but there's a bunch of cap landfills that we have experience and a lot of goodwill with the state to do, and have gone through DEC, A&R, and all the hurdles to make the permit process work. Design and location, obviously the location of this one's going to be on the cap landfill because that's a preferred solar site, and that's where we get preferred site status. I'm not going to go through. You guys understand the net metering overview and the benefits of solar, so I don't have to go through.
I think I do. I'll go along with it and see if I do.
Okay. Do you want me to go over it?
I think I basically know, but
So
if you got a quick one,
yeah, I can do
make sure I'm on the right thing.
Yeah, so the benefit to the town would be a lease, obviously for the actual landfill. So we would lease the site from them. They would, not only get tax money from that, but they would get a lease payment. And then on the energy side, the net meter credits that are produced out of that, we could allocate the credits onto any bills that the town of Bristol has on their meters. But those are two separate contracts. So the focus of the actual site and the lease, because the town is in a unique position owning their landfill, we would lease, and then there would be another agreement for the net metering credits, which would be a net metering agreement with the town from that array, or another array that we already have in permitting. So we can do that at any time on the net metering side, because we have other sites all over Green Mountain Power that can take put credits on the town of Bristol's bills.
So that net metering, as long as, GMP is still giving whatever, however many cents
Yes.
would go to whatever the town decided or whatever it was.
Yeah, so it's a
Yeah.
10% discount on the bills, and basically if you had a $100 bill to GMP, 0 to GMP now, and you would pay 90 to the system owner, which is Green Lantern, and keep 10. And that's how the percentage savings works with the credits.
Okay.
It's just so you would get a bill still from GMP, and then you would get a bill from the array, which is separately metered. And the meter that's at the, say it's on the town landfill, the meter at that site would produce credits. The credits would be put on GMP's bill. Those credits would be shown on Bristol's bills, whatever meters we allocate to those credits, and then the percentage gets split, and you only get charged on actuals. We don't do revolving, so whatever you actually used, you will get charged of the credits. It's a little clunky, but it works, and it's working all over Vermont with many towns, many schools and
Yeah.
businesses.
So that's one way it could be done, that lease thing.
So that-
Or is that the only way you're offering?
Well, no, we can do net metering agreement separate from the landfill. So if there's appetite for net meter credits and you're already net metering for the town of Bristol, we have projects that we can put you on.
Okay. I guess I meant putting that solar array there, there's this one way of leasing the land, but you're not suggesting that the town own
The array.
that's a different whole thing that some people.
So the town unfortunately can't take advantage of the tax credits for these systems, and the tax
Okay,
credits
right.
help pay for the systems.
Okay,
So as
That's
a town, it wouldn't pencil out. There are ways to work that into a model, because Green Lantern's unique, as we won't turn any idea down. It's just got to make sense to the people financing the projects and how,
yeah.
because we do, the town of Williston bought back their system, I think, in 6 or 7 years after
yeah.
the tax appetite got,
Okay,
you
right.
know.
So then they own it, and then so then they end up getting more
Yeah, so
free
they, exactly.
energy in the future.
Yeah, because,
That's when it really kicks in.
and there are ways to work those business models, and we'd be
Yeah.
happy to get into that conversation, which would be fine. The biggest, I wouldn't say rush, but the biggest hurdle is getting the permitting started as soon as possible, because the rates are just keep going down, and it's just these process, especially on landfills, are not quick projects, and they're very intensive financially for us,
Yeah.
and the benefits are going down, just from, because this is net metering 3.0,
Yeah.
what we call 3.0, so the rates have gone down even from the 2.0 projects we did, and the 1.0, I mean, it went from 19 cents to 16, and now we're somewhere around 14, so it's definitely, here, you can
Yeah.
do this is a, how are you doing? I'm Victor.
Hi, Victor. Mike Cord. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Sorry
So
about the
is-
cold hands there.
Oh, it's all right.
The size 500 megawatt, is that?
500
because-
kW.
KW.
I wish it was
Yeah,
megawatts,
I
but
do too. Is that size because of limitations in the carrying capacity of the lines, or?
no, that's the size capacity of 500 kW is a state rule in net metering, and we cannot go over for net metering 500 kW. So that's the system
Per setup.
per lot
Per lot.
per lot basically is how.
If we divided the lot in half and called it two things?
If there's two separate entryways, that could be done. But it's not favorable, and there are ways to do it, but we like to follow the rules of the
Yeah,
net
sure.
metering systems and put them in the way they want them put in on preferred sites. So I did a little bit. You can go to this one. I did just a quick and dirty. Here you go. That's just the size of the array on the back, and just the scope of the project on the landfill itself, and that's about the area that we would be using, which is about 3.5 acres if we can get a full-size system. Now, it really depends on the dumps themselves. If the pitch or the size of the hill is more than 27 degrees, we can't put a ballasted system because of geotechnical reasons. So there's more studying to be done in this location
Yeah,
than
because it's not flat.
no.
It's pretty hilly over there.
Yeah, and we're very good at dealing with that, but we have to get engineers. You know, we would like to enter into an option to lease so that we can pay our engineers and all their studies to be done, because this is not. You don't just do this on a whim. These are
Yeah.
a very long planned out process to make sure that we have a project. You know, Green Lantern, like I said, is from Vermont. We're here to own and operate these things for the next 20 years. And the thing to understand about commercial systems is, my Vermont joke is it's not a cash cow, it's a steady milker. Like, these things do not make the money in the first 6 or 8 years. They make the money in year 8 through 20 and hopefully beyond, because we like to go to a 35-year model. So we do a 20-year agreement with 3 5-year extensions. So we have the view that anything in Vermont is very difficult to permit. So once we have these sites permitted for an energy project, most likely these might be mini power producing energy for the foreseeable future.
Right.
What we sign on for the PSB and the CPG, or the National Public Utility Commission, we sign on to dismantle the project at the end of its useful economic life. So there is teeth in us to make sure that these are dealt with at the end of the term of the 35 years with you. But who knows what's going to happen in 35 years? Maybe these will be redone.
Rebooted.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in the energy world, and I don't think there's a single person that could tell you in 35 years what will be. But what I feel is that sites like these don't have many uses.
Right. So I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So have you actually been to this site?
Yes.
Seen it recently?
Yeah. Not recently. Like I went and checked out the. We were dealing with the Casella one down the hill, so
Yeah.
I looked at that and I looked at this one, and that was about a year ago.
Okay.
Maybe.
So you know the rolling hills
Yeah.
of that piece of land.
Yeah.
I spoke with our zoning administrator today, and he worked there for 3 years, and he was skeptical about the amount of sun that it would get.
Right, and Vermont it's really, the sun is definitely. We did I mean, you can see in this model there is the performance ratio is like 79%, which is, this is just really quick, like going from
Okay.
So there's enough. It's not shaded to the point where we
Okay.
feel it's not a bad site.
What's the cutoff for performance ratio?
Oh, I'd have to get you that number. It really comes down to the next report from this one. So
Okay.
they go out with what's called the Sun Eye, and they can see what the actual
Yeah.
on-site, because these models are based off of forget the acronym. I'll get it to you.
But it's more detail than obviously just looking at the map.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, somebody
So-
goes on site and they actually measure the
Yeah.
whole thing from the tree heights to the where you are geolocated.
But to get to that, the town needs to sign.
An option to lease, yeah.
Okay.
Because we in order to spend our
Yeah.
money to
Yeah.
get to
Okay.
those hard questions, that's the.
And is there a possibility that we would sign that, you would do the next study, and then it wouldn't be a viable
No.
location?
We've
Oh,
never,
really?
once we sign an option to lease, in my 4 years I've been doing it with this company, we've never backed out of one.
Okay.
There hasn't been an occasion, like, we don't
Okay.
see that happening now. I mean, I can't say guaranteed, but I
Yeah.
can't,
Okay.
depends on what's underneath the landfill itself.
So one of the biggest things that, the select board is gonna look at is, the cost and what it's gonna cost us.
0.
Right. But is that, it's a nice thing to hear, but are there any things that we should be aware of in terms of if we begin this process?
As far as setbacks that we've had?
Yeah.
So,
I'm asking what I know the select board is gonna ask because they've asked.
so
us
in
on it.
Cambridge itself, we had to, the setbacks for us personally was we had to curtail our building days so that the town could, you know, still use the facility, because they
Oh, interesting.
have a transfer or whatever you want to call it. They come Wednesday and Saturday.
Yeah,
to-
transfer station.
So during those days, you know, they don't work. So that
And we
was,
have buildings there.
yeah,
as
and I
well.
saw that. So
Yeah.
construction schedule for us, you know, it's only a 5 to 9 week process to build one of these. So it's not a huge time,
Okay.
but it's definitely a consideration of what we've been dealing with in the landfills. The slope, like I said, is we had to basically put trays and cribbing and stuff to, depending on what the cap's made out of.
Yeah.
So that was one small issue that we had, but we figured it out. And another was more of the utility themselves having to rearrange and place poles, and then figuring out on their end with our engineers and the town's comfort of figuring out with DEC and A&R some, you know, intricacies in how the actual building was going.
Do you need 3-phase there?
For a 500 kW, we definitely need 3-phase, and for a 150 kW, we only need single phase.
Okay.
And
Do
the
we-
project size will be determined. We always like to go for 500, but most likely will be determined by the slopes and by the sun
Oh, I see. So
exposure.
it could be less,
Yeah,
but it may not be. It might be, hopefully be more than 150.
yeah. Hopefully, we get a 500 kW. I mean,
Okay.
we that's what it comes down to economic sense and what the actual interconnections are going to look like with
Right.
Green Mountain Power. So, I can tell you confidently, the bigger the better for us
Yeah.
and for you guys,
Because
because
of your
it's
return of what the.
it's just scale of economy. Building a 150 is the same as building a 500 for the guys on the ground. You know, it's more racking, more paneling, but it's same setup. So like once they're there, it's
Yeah.
it's better.
So looking at our landfill has this unusual shape. It's got sort of a body at the bottom and then sort of like the dog's head at the top there.
Yes.
So you chose the head area to place most of the panels. Is that just a rough estimate?
That's
or-
total. Yeah, it's total
Okay.
rough. And what I did was try to just keep them concise to give you an idea of the actual square footprint.
Yeah.
These things can be, you know, it might rest on part of, say, the dog's back and the dog's
Yeah.
head just on the top.
Okay.
You know, when we get in there, it really comes down to stringing
Right.
and the inverters where they're placed.
And again, that's that next stage where you start.
Yeah, that's after we sign an option to lease. We do all the engineering. We put in for the 45-day notice, which you may or may not be familiar with. So that notices all the abutters that the project's going to happen.
Right.
And then it goes into a petition, and then we wait for a permit. But it takes, you know, it'll take some time. We have to wait for the growing season too, which will be like July 1st, I think, by the time they get out and check for plants and
Oh, I see. Okay.
all the other.
And it doesn't matter about the time that we have left in terms of the cap on it.
As far as, so,
In terms of putting something, and I thought because
Yeah,
it's
There's a settling.
that's
You
right.
need to
Right.
settle.
Right,
it's-
and that's
it's
why
been
they're
checked-
on-
It's checked every year, and I think it's like 2037 or 27 when I think it's.
so you mean your post-closure
Yeah.
permits? I haven't gone through the permits themselves,
Okay.
but we will definitely have all of that answered. And that's another service we provide, yeah.
Is it 6 years from the date that it was closed?
Well, that's the thing. It says Valerie, our town administrator, sent me some stuff today, and it talked about certification period, data signature to December 31st, 2026.
Okay. I'd have to look at that. But if
Okay.
you could send me that, I could get you an answer for all of that.
Okay. Because you mentioned before that it sometimes it doesn't matter if you have that waiting period, you can still put it on, or
So,
or is that
Department of Environmental Control, and Buzz Cirillo, I think, is the guy for here. It matters to them. We will get. How ask that question again?
because I asked you about the cap
Yeah.
previously when we met, and you said that sometimes the cap doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about that waiting period, like you don't have to wait that long if you're doing something like
Oh, so when you're in post-closure, we can still apply, so because it's a preferred site, we can still apply and put, so it's
Oh,
kind
but
of
so
like,
you're still waiting for the closure period.
Yes.
But it doesn't stop you in terms of the project going ahead.
Exactly.
It would just happen
Yeah.
when,
It's ready.
yeah.
okay. But is that 2026 data signature to December 31st, is that?
I'd have to
how long is
look at
that?
that.
So if it was 15,
I thought it was something
More than
like 7
6 years.
years.
no, I know, so maybe it's more than, yeah. Okay, so we'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But
That's
that's-
part of the deal. We go through the whole,
Okay,
we go through all the permits that exist and then any limitations and get to the bottom of exactly what type of closure you're under, what kind of monitoring
I
you're
see.
doing, the whole enchilada. It's very involved.
so for some projects, have you been waiting years for the landfills to?
No, we've been able to do it concurrently because this is where the state says they want to see them. So
Oh, okay.
they've let both the monitoring happen with the
Okay,
building
so
and solar.
that was my question.
Yes,
Whether
so
you-
we can accomplish both
Okay, I
without
see.
affecting the
Because it's a preferred site, and as long as it's safe, and it's not gonna impact
Yes.
the monitoring or the settling.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's what I was.
Exactly.
So is that why the ballast,
That's why they're on ballast, yeah, so,
Ah.
so they don't affect the cap. So
Okay.
we actually go through a calculation to do pound per square footage, and we have a whole geotechnical team that actually has to sign off on settling rates and compaction and like square foot pound, like how big the blocks have to be. And that's checked off within a myriad of permits that we have to go through.
what do you use for ballast?
So right now we've been using concrete ballast, but there's a couple different systems. There's ones in plastic buckets and there's also ones on the ground. So it really depends on what the engineers suggest.
So these are modular.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Some are pour in place, some are modular, some are precast. So we did one in, I think the Cambridge one was precast. So they poured them all and then brought them in. And then we did Lindenville, we did a brownfield, which they were all in ballast. And we did, they're basically giant tubs. And you put the posts in the tub and then you pour them in place. So they're pour in place tubs. It's a neat system. So there's a couple different ways of doing the ballast. And ultimately, we have to adhere, especially on the landfill sites, to not compact,
Yeah.
not dig ruts and that type of stuff to make sure we retain the integrity of the cap. And
So
that's-
you have to like have a cement truck at the top and a long thing to go
Oh,
into those buckets.
sometimes
Is that the
you-
deal?
yeah.
Yeah.
I know where there's
Helicopter.
one full of Christmas lights that you can,
Really?
have you seen that?
I did. I saw it with my girls the other day. We saw the SD Ireland
Yeah.
tumbler, and they were like, "What is that?" The thing is bright when you go by it.
So the 2018 evaluation report
Yep.
had a few things.
Okay.
They talked about minor soil erosion occurred in several areas, some damage from mowing machinery, and washouts along the northern drainage swale. But they have recommendations just to reseed and
Right.
regrade. So pretty minor. So it seems to be.
Yeah, and a lot of that
each
stuff.
yearly report seems to be fine in terms of the land there.
Yeah, and we take care of that anyways. In like when we leave the sites after we've done the construction, we make sure that we follow those guidelines as well.
Okay.
How do you control weeds, things like that? What do you do?
Just mowing.
Mowing?
Yeah.
You don't spray them with stuff?
Sheep.
Sheep would be, yeah. Would that
seen
be
sheep in
possible if
Rivertown.
somebody wanted to?
Sheep on a landfill. I mean, you guys would have to get the insurance, I think, on that one.
Yeah, right, maybe not.
Question, do you have the capacity to involve students in Mount Aid? Your science teacher might accompany them if those who are interested. In the early days, before you start construction, where you probably wouldn't want people without hard hats on the property. Do you have that capacity, you suppose?
So what we've done a lot, my brother and I actually went to public schools here in Vermont, is we always say to the local community schools, if their teachers want to get involved, we'd love to share, that experience. We've also offered to put monitoring in the school, so they can actually see, because you can do all this remote monitoring anyways from the solar to see what it's producing on a given day.
Great.
So we,
Yeah.
absolutely, that offer is always out there. So it's funny because we give that offer to everybody, but nobody's really taken us up on it. And
Oh, wow.
my brother and I have, offered to come to schools and excite people about renewable energy and projects. So yeah, I'm all for getting
Definitely want to do that.
people fired up about
Yeah,
solar or,
yeah.
And I have another question.
yeah.
If you were to sort of choose this site today, how long before you'd actually be putting concrete in the ground?
So permit cycle for a project like this is probably, I want to say 12 months, but realistically, because of the complexity of the site, 18 would be
Okay.
conservatively 8 months.
Okay.
So Randolph, I went in, what was it? I think it took less than 12 months, but I don't like promising people timeframes because what happens with the state with these permits is they get put on the desk and we wait at the end of the 45 day and the 21 day and we just wait for the actual CPG to put out. There's no time. They don't give us a time frame saying you've completed all of what we want and you will have your permit in X amount of days. That does not exist. So we complete everything they want and then we've been surprised and had it within a week or two, and other ones we've waited 6 months and we're like, can you guys get to that one? It's like, oh yeah, it's here. It depends on their workload. And, that's been a hard part about our business is predicting when those actual certificates of public good will come out.
So some public follow-up after you've done permitting might help.
On the town side, definitely, yeah. Yeah, on our side, we don't we don't want to poke the bear, so
Yeah.
we'll wait our turn and do the right thing.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions that people have?
And I had an option to lease agreement. I don't know if you want me to
Sure.
leave it with you. I got 6 of them. Do you want to try hand them out to everybody or just give them to you? And I can send you all this stuff digitally so they can see it
Yes,
online.
send it. I'll take one and then we
Okay.
can send the rest to everyone else.
I'd love to see one too.
Okay.
I'll pass it. Oh, it's two.
Yeah, that one wasn't double sided.
Oh, yeah.
This one. Did you want to see an option?
I always use the backside for the things. No worries.
See the options here.
So you said that a year ago you took a look at, you were looking at the other landfill. that
Yeah,
you
the
sell
one on the
on.
bottom of the hill
Are
and
you
the sand pit.
considering that? I mean, is that?
I would
that
love
that,
to.
That would be a preferred site as well.
Yes, I would
right?
love to do that one,
Because that's a
but
much larger, flatter area.
yep,
Okay.
that and
Do you
the
know
sand
who
pit.
currently owns that?
Yeah, Casella.
Oh, Casella still owns it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I met with them, and they're just a big corporation.
Yeah.
And what was their, were they interested or?
So I guess I wouldn't want to talk and tell you what they,
Okay.
because we're still in talks with them.
Okay.
So I don't know if it'd be appropriate
Okay.
to say that.
No, that's fine. I was just Chris, the zoning administrator, when I was talking about the project today, he was skeptical about the sun, just having been there, but I think a lot of that
Yeah.
was just like,
Well, in
sort of
Vermont,
working there and like feeling
Yeah.
the sun and seeing the sun, but then what actually can be used in terms of panel creation. But he also mentioned
Yeah.
he thought prime, because he knows the area,
Yeah.
prime location would be that parcel of land.
Oh,
given the
definitely.
Size and given so we were wondering who would still own that. Okay.
Yeah, and it's ultimately it's the people who move quicker on these projects, they become a reality, and it's hard because these take a dedicated focus to complete.
Right.
It's a lot easier going into a green field and popping a couple posts and taking the ding on the net metering than it is to do the hard work and brain damage
Right.
that it takes to get these to go through correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of work on our part to make, we believe in it and they are good sites, but this is not an easy process.
Right.
And so it's really expensive too. So like the amount of money you spend doing the hard work and playing, in this field with brownfields. And, we did the nuclear missile base. That was a hard one. We did Lindenville, like I said, was a brownfield. We were the first people to take it through the BRELA program. So we've done a lot of heavy lifting, and we've done all the other landfills. I think it's up to 7 of them now with towns like Bristol's
Right.
situation where they have a negative. I wouldn't say just a piece of land that's never going to be used for.
Right. So for the Casella owned one, if we wanted to, are there things that the Energy Committee could do to help that?
Yeah, you could write us a letter saying, we believe as the Energy Committee of Bristol that, that might sway them.
Okay.
Um,
Because we're looking, we've just started work on an enhanced town plan
Yep.
through the Regional Planning Commission.
yeah, yeah.
And so part of that process is going to be identifying sites. I mean, it's already identified because it's an ex-landfill site.
Yeah, and I talked to him almost 6 months ago and just talked to him again last week.
Okay.
So if you as a committee wanted to write a letter in support, I would definitely, I'm right at their boardroom with the owners. I can
Okay.
put that across his desk and maybe that will be the thing that
Okay.
gets them, okay, we're into this.
Because we're going to, Bristol's going to need to produce a certain amount of power by
Yeah,
2050, and we're nowhere near that, so it's going to be projects like this.
it has to
Help
be.
us.
Yeah, and honestly, it has to be projects like this, and there's not enough space for some towns. I don't know
Right.
what your situation is, but
Yeah.
the goal doesn't match up with what you could physically put
Right.
on property.
Yeah, given the lands that we have and what's available.
But I think any project is good. It's a step in the right direction, and I think these are the best steps in the beginning because it's the public perception is turning more towards. I mean, 4 years ago, it's amazing how the perception of solar has changed just in the last 4 years I've been doing this. Because it's definitely palpable. I go to town meetings and meet with towns, and some of the people who couldn't stand the sight of it now have seen it every day, and it's not so bad anymore.
Yeah, right.
And not that I'm saying we should put them within people's views, but the more people see it, the more they get used to it, and it doesn't become a tough topic. I think
Right.
what happened in especially your neck of the woods on the 7 corridor really stunk.
Yeah.
I think it was short-sighted. A lot of developers could have made the same money, probably more, not making the rules difficult for themselves had they just put them out of
Right.
the Route 7 corridor where 90% of the population goes up and down every day.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and at least they started solar in Vermont and got the conversation started. So it's an interesting time, and honestly, solar has slowed down, and I think you're going to see this year and next year is going to be very difficult because the rates have gone down so low,
Right.
and commercial projects are getting harder to permit, so that there's a lot of less building. I mean,
Right.
you can see it in all the models if you look at the actual commercial solar models and what's being done, especially with interest rates going back up. It's getting tougher.
Right.
So we're trying to push as many through now as we can, and my opinion is do this as soon as you can so that
Right.
you can lock in the rates.
Right. John?
Yeah, another question. Do you have
Yeah, but go ahead if this
Okay.
is, yeah.
have you considered the rights of way beneath power line towers?
As far as within the projects,
Yeah.
yeah, so we have some leeway with Green Mountain Power depending on how that affects their ability to get the lines, but we, in the entire process, are working with the utility, and so they will let us know what they're comfortable with. Yeah.
Smart.
The question I had is, I went to this, over there, the VCAN thing.
Yes.
Well, I saw you there.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the same one I saw you in, I'm not sure.
Yes, with the Act 174 guy doing the maps.
Let's see. I'm not sure if it was that one or Oh, yeah, you were in there and
Ralph.
Ralph was in there
Yep.
too, and then you went to another one or something. right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so that one, they talked about no single customer can receive over 500
500
kilowatt.
kW, yep.
And so if a town has all their things together, but that doesn't really relate to us right now on this one, or?
So
Or
it depends on
should
what
I-
you're net metering. So one customer, which means one meter with one name on it, can only receive about 500 kW cap. So if the town has separate meters under separate customer names, each one of those meters can go up to 500 kW.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to how you guys bill. And the one thing I would ask from you guys is if we can get all of your Green Mountain Power bills, we can, even in an email permission, we can go through and do an energy study, and I can come back here and tell you exactly what we can save you on your power for the town.
That's great, because that seems like, we should find out if we have one bill for the whole town, or we have the firehouse,
Yeah.
and schools
Useful
another.
anyway.
So what I do is if you guys can email me and say, Victor, you have our permission from the town. Here are a list of all of our meter numbers. So every single meter the town pays for in Green Mountain Power, even if it's a small pump in a shed somewhere.
Yeah.
Like every single meter that you have paying a bill on, give us permission with those meter numbers, and then I can forward, because we're directly interfacing with GMP. We can get all those bills, and we'll go through them and take out all the non-bypassable charges, the customer charges. We go through line item by line item, and we can see exactly. And then I'll come back and show you exactly on a pro forma, because since we have so many operating projects in the state, we have very tight numbers on what these are actually doing. You know what I mean? Because like we have one right down the road, and we say, well, the one down the road is performing this. This is about
Oh,
the
yeah,
same
right,
shading
right.
profile, so
Right, I
we
see.
can see how many kW
Yeah,
that we're going to produce, and then we'll match it to your bills and the percentage that we would save you, and we will
Yeah.
be able to pretty close,
that's
plus
great,
plus or minus,
Yeah. that's great.
but almost exact. Actually, it's pretty amazing.
So, Ian, is that something you would talk to Valerie about,
Yeah.
or who's that? Okay,
Because we need to start that anyway for looking at the audit. I just haven't begun
Yeah,
the
right.
process yet.
that's great.
I need to sit down with Sharon.
And I'll also break down the non-bypassable, like your street lighting. Sometimes depends on how if it's metered or non-metered,
Oh,
or
yeah,
so I can get you an idea of what your street lights will be separated, because we can't net meter, depending on how your bills are set up
Right.
with GMP. I don't know until I look at all that information.
I'm sure it's a
Great.
big mess, given how many random meters we have on the park.
I mean,
Yeah,
we
right.
just did the whole town of Essex. That was
Oh, wow.
a mess. And they have a town and a township, and then, not to say it was bad, I'm just saying it was a lot.
complicated.
Yeah, complicated. And we've done a lot of complicated ones, and it's what we do every day, so we can really get pretty close, and it's good, valuable information for you anyways.
Definitely.
So given the complexity of these projects and how hard you guys work, how do you make money?
How do we make money? That's a great question.
Proprietary.
Yeah. It's for the love of the city.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say.
So
So
I'm assuming you do.
yes,
Yes.
we do. We make money because we're the construction company. So we construct, and that's some of the money. We also make money on the long-term performance of the system, so the credits. So the town basically cash flows if they net meter with it, or somebody else net meters with it. That's what cash flows the system. So we match up the dollar load to the system size, and then it
But
pays.
that's not coming from the town though, right? That's coming from the utility.
So you pay the utility. So
Yeah.
you're paying. So it's just super simple model. GMP $100 bill.
Yep.
You now have 0 to GMP. You're paying 90 to Green Lantern. So
Okay.
every month that $90 cash flow, instead of GMP going that way, it's now going this way.
Okay.
So that's how the system gets paid back. And then the term is so long. Like I said in the beginning, these
Right.
system paybacks are 4 to 8 years. The real money made is the 30% tax credit and the 7.2% tax in-state tax credit for investment.
Which we're not seeing, but you are because you're set up that way.
Exactly.
And in terms of the electric bill, does ours remain the same or does it go? Can it change?
Yours goes down.
Okay.
So by 10%.
Just by 10%.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That's,
But
that's
we
a no.
also-
That's nothing. So you have to keep it separated. The lease of the land
Right.
is the lease of the land. The net metering agreement you could
Where
do
you're
with
paying-
us.
You're paying us.
Yes, we're paying you,
Right.
and then we'd be paying taxes. It's
Right.
all
Right.
good for the town because
Oh, yeah.
they're getting a net negative property producing income,
Right.
and then on the other side, if you choose to, because some towns don't choose to enter into the net metering agreement, which to me is fascinating, but they're like, well, there's going to be a technology in 10 years that's going to
Oh, I see.
come along and we'll
Magic power.
get magic power. And I'm like, okay, sure. Somebody else jumps right on board because they want the 10% savings without spending a dollar.
Yeah.
So I could come to you right now without this project and say, we have projects in Green Mountain Power we're building right now that need off takers. You could sign up with or without this lease on this
Right.
area.
Okay.
So we have other projects that are looking for off takers. So you could enter into just a net meter agreement for a savings with spending absolutely no money. And I'll send you that agreement so you can see what
Okay.
it looks like. But yeah,
We
that,
still don't spend money.
you still don't spend money on that one either.
Right. So we're still paying our electric bill, but it's 10% less.
Yes.
But we're not paying GMP anymore. We're paying you. In terms of the construction, you said you make money on the construction, but we're not paying for that either. So who's paying for that?
For the construction, so
Yeah.
that's where the tax equity, the
Ah.
30%, they put all the money up front and they get their 30% back and then get paid out over time.
And those are your investors.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so, but just to clarify what you said before on the bill, and I'll show you this when we get into the energy study, there are some GMP, you're still gonna have to pay GMP something. There's probably a efficiency charge or
Yeah.
something that we can't bypass for net metering.
Yeah.
So you will still have,
Okay.
and you will always have a bill from GMP. You're never disconnected. You're just gonna, on that bill, I'll show you a sample bill too. Remind me and I'll send
Okay.
you a sample bill. We have one redacted that has like just the net meter
Yeah.
credit on it.
Okay.
So you will see all the charges on your GMP bills that you normally get, and then we'll have a credit, and then minus that credit, this is what you owe GMP, nominal, and then you owe 90% to us
Yeah.
of what that credit
Right.
was.
But that's still going, it's all part of GMP's bill.
Yes.
Okay.
And you
All
will
right.
always be connected to GMP's
Right.
bill. And you basically, the town would have one extra bill. But
Okay.
one bill would have a 10% savings on it, and you would pay your 90%. It's really clunky, and it's taken me years to be able to explain it. But once you see the bills, it works.
Okay.
But it's just it's not an easy. It would have been easier for solar had the utilities just bought it
Right.
instead of adding a third party to it to pay for the credit.
For the lease cost, how is that calculated?
So because these systems on the actual cap landfill are so expensive, and because we're in net metering 3.0, the lease has gone down significantly.
I see.
And they're calculated by the system cost and by the site.
Okay.
So if this was in a greenfield, your lease would be way higher, not way higher, but significantly more. But because we have to do a ballasted system, all the extra money for the,
But if we had other town land that was,
so it'd be site specific. If it was an easy sand pit, it would be much better.
okay.
But
Because it's the town dump.
because it's the dump,
5,000 a year.
yeah, and because we have all the permitting to do with DEC, the ballasting of the actual system cost, it really comes down to interconnection and overall system cost. The lower we can keep our interconnection costs and the lower we can keep the system cost, the higher the lease payment.
Okay.
And it's a sliding scale for each project, but the greener the field, the more money, unfortunately. That's why these projects, they're not home runs.
Yeah.
This is no offense to the town or anything, but this is not a great project.
Right. No,
for
that's,
us.
that's why I'm asking specifics about how you make money.
Yeah.
It seems like you're putting in everything and you're paying us.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. And the reason
whereas
it works,
usually it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Whereas like, well, if you could just, you need to pay 10% or 50 up front or,
yeah, exactly. And that's where it
for
becomes
putting
like,
a giant infrastructure,
Yeah.
a very expensive infrastructure on our land.
yeah, totally. And that's where these things, they do pencil out and they do work, and we're still pushing ahead.
Right. You wouldn't be in business if they didn't.
No.
So it's the lease payment, the 5,000 a year, and it goes up after the 21 year.
Yep,
one remark. And there's also the property tax
yep,
on top of that.
and the solar tax.
Oh, and the solar.
And then there's a local job or two from plowing it out, making
Yeah.
sure we have, emergency
So
connect.
with the solar tax, is that something that the charge?
So it's a state
the-
computated tax, and some of it goes to the town, some of it goes to the
Oh,
state.
interesting. Huh, okay.
And I can get you more, I don't have the details memorized because I'm not a tax specialist, so,
Yeah.
but there is a strange calculation that they do of the net value of the equipment along
I
with where it is, and then they divvy it up.
Okay. One of the things in your letter talked about 20 years with the option of extension going out to 35.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about?
So the 20-year term is what we need to finance these systems. We have to have a 20-year term because the panels are warranted for 20 years. The inverters, we have an inverter fund from the very beginning to make sure that the inverters are probably 10 to 15 years. So we replace them probably year 10 or 12. So the actual panels are warranted sometimes 20 to 25 years, but all of our contracts have been written by leagues and cities and towns was the net meter contract, and so we've done everything on a 20-year model,
Okay.
and the 3 5-year extensions are put in just because we don't know what's going to happen in those years. But the way net metering is written is it's indefinite. So, I think what's, like I said in the beginning, I think what's going to happen is we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
But I think these sites will be longer, and personally 35 years, but like once the system's economic useful life is done, we have to by law take these out and put it back to the way it was.
Right.
So it will be a dump probably forever unless we do like, I think it was Minnesota or some state dug up all their dumps and sent it to Tennessee or something. Or maybe it was Wisconsin.
That was nice of them.
Yeah, I forget which
Okay.
one it was.
I mean, hopefully, you would, by that time, you would swap out and put panels in
Oh yeah, hopefully.
and capture
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
25 times the amount of power
I
that
hope
this
1,000
system.
times. Honestly.
Right.
Yeah,
But
right.
we'll see what technology and
Yeah.
panels can do.
Yeah, that
It's-
seems
yeah, it's something far
like
beyond.
the
Okay.
thing to look forward
I mean,
to.
even when I started this, we were permitting 175 to 210 watt panels,
Mhm.
and now we're up in the 400s.
Wow.
380s to 450. And that's in 4 years. That's an incredible jump.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
very, very impressive
Yeah.
to see what we're putting out. Now they're doing bifacials. They're getting into the 500s, which we're trying to test because bifacials melt snow better
Yeah.
in northern climates because there's no solid back to them. So the glass actually creates more heat.
Ah,
But the issues they're having with bifacials because they're so new is they can't guarantee in a financial model that they save or they produce more power.
Yeah.
So they have to prove it like in their studies for the financial guys to risk putting these panels on. So I'm pushing our guys and our financial team to accept bifacials because I think it's the next step.
Right.
But we'll see. And then obviously, batteries and DC coupling, but there's a whole new.
But apart from that, there's not much else out there. It's just the panels and the inverters.
Yeah, pretty much
And then the cost to get 3-phase if it's not already out there.
to the site, yeah.
Okay.
And that, unfortunately, the line extension is not tax eligible,
Okay.
and that's where a lot of the higher the cost for the interconnection directly impacts the size of the project.
Okay.
So if a 500 comes up against $1 million interconnection, we're going down to 150 and doing a single phase interconnection.
For this to get 3-phase to the site, you're paying for that too?
Yes, we have to do all the.
Do you know
upgrades.
if there's 3-phase out there?
I did the mapping, and it looks promising, but
Okay.
until we have to do a system impact study and do a whole host of studies with GMP, and once they come back and tell us exactly
Yeah.
what the system is, we have our best guesses. It looks good. I wouldn't be here if it didn't, but you never know until you spend the money on the actual tests,
Yeah.
and then what the substation can take. but it's in a load center. It's right in the middle of town, so
Right.
I think it will be good.
Okay.
Where are all the panels and equipment from? Where are they made and all that?
So it really depends on when we order, but we've been ordering a lot of Canadian Solar, Hanwha, which is Korean, and some Canadian, obviously, and some US. It really, what happens a lot with us is panels are a commodity, and sometimes because we don't have sometimes we get permits all at once. So then we buy all the panels for all those projects at once. And sometimes there's not enough panels, so we'll have to find panels sitting somewhere. So the panels, when the tariffs came out, we bought ahead for quarter 1 and quarter 2. So it really depends on when the projects actually happen. So I couldn't tell you. We like to buy as local as possible because if you don't have to ship them, it's cheaper. So it really depends in 12 to 18 months where we're at when we actually get the permits. Is where it comes down from where we actually place the panel orders. And honestly, the panels change their wattages, and sometimes there's a glut of panels. Like manufacturers sometimes make more, and they're sitting on projects that failed, like a megawatt project down south failed, and
Right.
we picked up panels from them because they had extra panels on the market, and they're like, well, we have these made, they didn't go to this project because the project failed, do you guys want to buy them? Yeah, we'll buy them.
So with this kind of project, since we're working on the enhanced plan and we need to produce a certain amount, this is going to qualify.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
In terms of what we're producing, 'cause
Yep.
since it's net metered.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions?
I guess just kind of not about this particular project, but in future, well, you were also talking about the one on 116 possibly. That's something.
Yes.
And then, do you ever do a project where the people own it? I mean, you started saying
So
that,
community
maybe-
solar,
Is, it,
is that what you're talking about?
I mean, like you do a project and then maybe that's what it is. Then maybe Bristol owns it from the
Oh,
start.
so what we did in Williston is we did the 6-year, I think it was 6 or 9 years. We did where the tax investors got the tax credits, and then when the system depreciated, the town bought it and took it over.
Right.
And that is definitely, because we're unique we're business to business company, we can go into how that works for the town. If the town's interested in, ownership models, we can definitely go there.
Yeah.
The hardest part is the beginning, is realizing that tax credit, because that's what drives
Right.
building these things.
Right.
Because the town can't,
Yeah.
it's not a taxable, I don't know how to explain it, but they can't take the tax investment.
Yeah. There was someone at that conference who talked about their whole thing from, I think you weren't in that one, this is later in the day, I think. Someone talked about the town manager of Colchester went through the whole process of, and they asked their town for a power purchase agreement,
Yep.
all right? And then,
Well, this is a net metering agreement, so
it's a whole different thing.
well, power purchase agreement is kind of the same as net metering agreement, but power purchase is more utility side. So they buy, 25 megawatts from, I don't know, a hydro plant.
Okay.
And they pay a certain KW for that, and they have a contract with a fixed term, 10 years, I'm gonna buy power from you.
Okay.
So that's more of a PPA model. The net metering agreement is, we're trading credits for dollars, basically.
Okay. Yeah, so you're not someone to talk to about that, for, you guys don't.
For
do
power
that.
purchase?
Yeah, that's just a whole different thing.
So in Vermont, you're regulated. So in New York, you could do like direct power purchases, but because the system here is regulated, you have to buy through the utility.
Okay,
So you can't buy from another
Okay.
utility.
okay.
Like, because you're in
Right.
Green Mountain Power,
Oh, you have to buy,
you have to buy from Green Mountain Power.
okay, I see, yeah.
So in New York, for instance, if you're a town, you can say, hey, I don't like the deal you're giving me. I'm gonna go buy energy from, I don't know, Exelon or whatever the company
Yeah.
is. That's because it's unregulated. You can go right down the door and say, hey, I'm a town. I want to buy this amount of KW. This is what I was paying, and you're gonna give me less because we're gonna buy from you. And they're like, okay, where do we sign?
Yeah,
You know, and
yeah,
that's how. And they're like, we want a 20-year contract because we want to guarantee ourselves money from the town, and it's a good contract.
yeah.
In Vermont, it doesn't work that way. We are set up.
Oh, yeah. Actually, there was something here, something about they used a municipal lease, no bond, and the town received benefit after 10 to 15 years. It's interesting. I'd have to talk to this person to find out about that, I guess.
So there, it might have been the Krebs one that the electric companies themselves, like Hyde Park, did a Krebs bond, and they put in their own array and sold the power back to their own.
Oh, yeah, I think that might be.
So that was a small municipal electric utility that basically put in for a Krebs bond, got their system paid, it paid back, and they took all the savings and direct sold themselves the power to give to their ratepayers, is my understanding of it.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And
Yeah.
GMP is, you wouldn't be able to do that here.
Okay, done.
I don't think. You'd have to talk to
Yeah.
GMP, but
Yeah,
that's a tough one.
yeah.
Any more questions?
I have a question that's unrelated to this. It has to do with siting.
Yeah,
So I spent some time in California, and I'm amazed at how many parking lots,
yes.
large lots,
Yeah.
have solar.
Yeah.
Schools.
Yeah, we're starting to do canopies and rooftops. Well, we've done rooftops for a while, but
Right.
we've done a lot of storage, container places and
Yeah.
large commercial buildings.
So I mean, is Vermont if they have a large enough parking lot, is there any disadvantage to doing a parking lot versus, of course, California, probably the
The pitches are a
the
little
pitches are
better.
very different,
Yeah.
you know, in terms, I mean, they're almost
Snow
flat
loads, yeah,
sometimes.
totally.
Yeah.
So our biggest issue is cost for the structures are very expensive still.
Okay.
So they've definitely come out with some unique systems, and we have, you know, all those guys on speed dial. We've done a bunch of it, but we would absolutely look at parking lots
Yeah.
and structures. The hard part about structures in Vermont is most of them were built in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and the roofs themselves
Oh, yeah.
were never designed.
Yeah,
Actually, the buildings built in 40s and 50s were designed perfectly because they didn't have any codes, and they're like, we got beams this big,
Yeah.
and we're gonna put them right next to each other because why not?
Yeah.
We're gonna get 6 feet of snow this year.
Yeah.
So the older buildings are amazing. Like I bet the roof on this
Sure.
thing could hold a
yeah.
literal ton.
Yeah.
But the buildings built in the 80s and 90s are, you know, 3 feet on center,
Yeah.
and just we've looked at a bunch of them. There are ways to do them. The hardest part with rooftops is the insurance.
Mm.
What happens and who's responsible.
Right.
So ultimately, my view of solar is as long as you put the right, because there's so many different connection systems to roofs, as long as you put, you're almost saving your roof's life by putting the panels on it because the panels are taking the brunt of the
Yeah.
weather and the sun. So the limited exposure and the holes, if you put holes, because they make cool connections now that clamp on, especially if it's standing seam, it's a no-brainer.
Right.
We have connection systems to standing seam roofs. If the town has any standing seam roofs, it's a great system with absolutely no penetration. And there's some other non-penetrating methods, and there's some ballasting that we've done. We did a 500, they're all basically ballast. So they put the panels in and they take basically garden stones, you know, just bricks,
Yeah.
and they lay the bricks in the rubber pad in a plastic bucket, and that's enough to hold the system down to the roof. So it's non-penetrating, you know. So I can give you, all I need is a lat longitude on any buildings that you have, and I can give you a complete, you know, just like the model here. We do the rooftop and tell you what can fit, and you know what our qualified opinion on.
So the school, high school, middle school would be one option. We looked
Okay.
at that. We're sort of, the Energy Committee has considered that before. Depending on who's employed at the time as the facilities person for the building, there have been, you know, questions whether the roof could hold it, warranty on the roof if there's penetration and stuff like that.
And we have our
But
own.
it's a big enough space, but
Yeah.
this,
Lot
given the size of the parking lot, that seems like it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
Fill that completely with solar panels.
Yeah, I can
and
definitely
also
look at
offer
that.
snow protection for any cars that are parked there.
yeah,
So let me send you details on
yeah,
that.
yeah. I'll definitely do a model and see, because there are definitely ways to do it.
And that's easily going to be a 500 kilowatt system.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Mount Abraham, because of its siting, is sort of unique in
Right.
terms of the parking lot, because it's pretty much just one massive
Square.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'd be happy to look at it.
Okay.
And I got the estimates on what it would take to get it done.
Okay.
You were talking about a town, for example, could only do up to a certain size if it's on 1 meter or billed
Yep.
to one entity.
Yep.
So that would be built through the school system?
So yes, it would definitely be built through the school system, and what we do with schools is that a K through 12 there?
No.
7.
7 through 12, so
Yeah.
that's probably close to like a 300 kW system that would power so the amount of bill load that they probably have just from our experience with schools. So it probably wouldn't even take a full 500, but I'd have to look at their bills, and we do an energy study for them and get same thing we're doing with the town with you guys, is get permission for their meters, and we can rip through all their bills and tell you exactly what they can use. The parking lot's a great place for it, honestly. It's the question of financing of the system and the cost, because still parking lot canopies are expensive still.
Mhm.
So they're but it's a great use, you know.
Yeah.
It really is. The issue is the snow loads and shedding the snow, and then
Yeah.
more posts to plow around,
Yeah,
and that's one consideration.
for sure.
Not much plowing where we were in California.
No, not at all.
It was, that was kind of cool, because we were doing a lot of bike riding, and I was always looking, I'd look on my phone for a school, because I knew I could park under these things,
Shade.
shade.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, no,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to working with you guys. And any site that you want to look at, we'd be happy to do a free study and at least give you a heads up on what we think.
Okay.
Yeah, if there was a site that was like a business's site that had phenomenal roofs that I just saw yesterday and was like, wow, those roofs are amazing.
Yeah.
Is it something, you go and talk to the people, or, I don't know. I mean, you can't do anything that's for someone else, but, those folks might not realize what a gold mine they have right there.
No, they don't. And what it takes is somebody like me who knocks on their door and says, hey, do you want to do this? And some people are anti, and some people are like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
a great thing for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
It really comes down to public perception and attitude in the end.
Yeah,
And then, people willingness to do something not new, but different from
Yeah.
what they're used to doing.
yeah,
Some people are just, it has nothing to do with the solar or the money. It has to do with they're just working, and they're too
Yeah.
busy to
Right.
concentrate on another project, because
Yeah.
these projects are not, it's not like I peel off the wrapper, here you go.
yeah,
This is a lot.
big project.
They're big projects, and it takes a lot of thinking and a lot of doing
Yeah.
to get it from, this concept to built.
Yeah.
And it's actually a really unique, cool feeling, because I tell people I used to be the guy waiting for the call to work, and now, we do so many projects that I go around and see people working because of what we do, and it's really the renewable energy, the jobs that has been created is actually,
Yeah,
it's quite amazing.
it's an economic boom.
Yeah, and it's great for the towns. And I mean, just at the start of this, I shopped at the local store and ate at Bobcats. It's times that in the next 18 months by 20, 30 contractors
Right.
and engineers, and
Yeah,
it makes a difference for a year or two.
yeah,
Unfortunately, they're not. They create about, I think, 2.5 jobs basically for the life of the project.
Right.
So you got like a guy who's always plowing, mowing, and then you got the electrician who has to come in and out, and then a couple controllers on our side, probably 2, doing the numbers, and then a bill person. So maybe closer to 5 people who
Yeah.
for 20 years or are concentrating on the life of that project and
Yeah.
seeing the asset through. So they're big investment. I mean, a 500 kW on a landfill is anywhere from $1.5 million to $2 million.
Yeah.
So it's not chump change. It's there.
Okay. Terrific.
So
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
I will
you so
send you
much.
all of the stuff digitally so you all can
That'd be great.
and you can forward it to
Yeah.
to them.
Super.
Do you have a
Thank you.
handout?
Oh yeah, yeah. This wait, let me see here. That's the optional lease.
I have that.
Oh, you have this one. This is the energy committee letter I wrote to you guys. This is just like a PowerPoint of how it all works. And did you get did I give you this one?
No.
So this is just a basic layout.
Good
Did
presentation.
you
Yeah,
get anything?
yeah.
You guys did?
I did, yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks. And just, I would say, at the very least, I would ask the Energy Committee to give us permission to get the bills for the town of Bristol, so that we can crunch numbers, and then we can really get to the fun part of how much would you save?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Because that's the
Yeah.
It's always the bottom line.
well, yeah. It comes down to money first, environment second.
Well, I don't know. I think most of us are pretty much.
No, I know energy committees are
But-
always environment first, money second. But well, thanks.
Thank you.
But the people we have
Thanks,
to
Victor.
work with are
Oh,
going to be.
yeah. I appreciate your time.
Great to see you
Yes,
there.
nice to see you.
Yeah,
again.
very informative, thanks.
Thanks.
Good.
Take it easy here.
Drive safe.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
always do. And it's not snowing tonight.
Yeah.
It won't be for a while. It doesn't look like.
Hey, you wanted to see for me?
Okay.
Need a pillow?
What do people think about that?
I think
Those
it's
are
great.
stuff.
It's
I think we should move
a great
forward.
opportunity to look forward.
Yeah.
Look into. Yeah, I think it sounds great. I mean, especially after what we've been hearing about with the enhanced energy plan stuff, and after going to that VCAN thing, it was just yeah.
He's had experience. He's not a startup.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like a no-brainer in terms of the town not having to front any of the money,
Yeah.
and they're getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
It's not a huge amount, but it's some. It helps us with our energy production needs,
Yeah.
and
And
it's,
it's on a site where it's not gonna,
yeah, and if they can get, if they can get what they can get out of that site, given the trees that are there and given
Yeah.
given how it slopes, then nothing else will ever happen there. And if they can build it while you're waiting for it to do its thing, in terms of off-gassing or settling, it's like
Yeah.
another reason for it not to just sit there.
Yeah.
You
how,
know?
how is it that Casella owns the lower part?
I think because it was a landfill at some point.
So they bought it from the
Yeah.
town for that purpose?
I don't know if it was the town that was using it. I think it was a different entity, according to Chris.
Huh.
But Casella were the last owners, or I guess still are those owners.
So they're paying taxes on it and all that?
I assume so. We'd have to find out about that.
I wonder if they'd want to sell it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a big parcel of land.
Yeah, where exactly is this one?
When you're coming up the hill to
George could go to school, I guess.
yeah.
Where's this one, or where's the Casella one?
Well, actually both, but.
Okay,
this one-
so this one is behind the high school. So if you
Like
All
at
right,
the
so
old
you're coming
dump.
up
Well, on the
Stony
north
Hill
side,
It's at the old dump.
the north side of the
Right.
high school.
correct.
At the end of
so
Pine
if you
Street.
travel down Pine Street all the way to where you do trash pickup.
I know, I'm in
Town
Paris, I
garage.
live on Pine Street,
Right.
right?
So it's right at the end of that. That's where the old town dump
Okay,
is. So
that's
it's
what I thought.
but it hasn't been a dump since 2015.
Right, right.
It was capped and closed, and so now it's a sort of rolling green fields, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, pretty good for
Um,
telemarking and cross country ski
Right.
season.
There's plans to put part of the Bristol Trail Network around it, which is still going to happen, but that's not going to, a solar
No, I-
thing isn't going to impact that, which is nice. And just the fact that people can be walking by that and seeing a system, it's generally hidden from everything else. But obviously there could be potential issues with the people who own land around it, but it goes before, it's a public thing, so you'd have time to comment on that. And then the other piece of land is essentially next to the cemetery at the bottom of Stony Hill. There's a land, it's off, Moncton Road, no wait, Moncton.
Burpee.
Road. Thank
Burpee
you.
Road.
It's off there, there's a large section that used to be, it's all flat, it's now sort of fields, but it used to be a town landfill, I guess it's still owned by Casella.
Yeah, because it has even off-gas pipes and stuff.
Oh, it does?
Sticking
Oh,
out of it,
interesting. Okay.
Huh, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
I mean, how would we,
Can we suck the methane out and sell it for more
Yeah,
gas?
yeah.
I don't know how much it's producing.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to go ahead with this, do we need to vote on that?
I think we should.
How would we vote on that? Make a motion, like we actually,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we haven't done any voting, we've just sort of gone ahead with things, but I don't know.
Could you
like,
suggest-
I-
What are some
an
of the
activity?
downsides? I mean, can you think of any downside to this?
I don't know, I mean, we'd have to read this more.
I mean, the question, yeah, the contract and what that all means. And are there any other options for companies that give you, again, better
More.
deals
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff? But no, I'm thinking about, is there any future use for that land? I can't imagine, but
Right.
is there any future use of that land that would be lost, that would be more beneficial to the community? In the
More
long run?
beneficial than carbon-free
Right,
energy production?
right,
Yeah,
Gonna be tough.
especially given our goals, I mean.
Right.
yeah.
right.
Ian, could I suggest if we could create an action, that would be step one, because I don't think we
Yeah.
want to vote on the entire project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But legitimate step one might be, what, talking again with the city, or?
Yeah,
Well, getting the thing that he just asked for
right.
would be the
Permission to
action
look at
step.
the metering and to
That-
see what.
That would be worth
Okay.
a vote, and then,
Okay, that gives us time to sort of look at this, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, if that happens and we all are in agreement, we just would need to
Yeah.
probably vote on that to go ahead, or to, at least to put this to the select.
Yeah,
board.
ground.
support a next step.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
okay.
So do you want a motion on that? Because you were
Yeah.
enabled
Yeah,
to approach the town and ask for permission for them to be able to access Green Mountain Power
yes.
bills as a first step, and then they'll come back to us with more information.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
let's do that
So that's a
as
motion. Is there a-
expeditiously
Is there a
as possible.
second?
I second the motion.
Oh, sure.
Uh,
Third,
Fourth, fifth, and then
All those in
do,
favor?
I've been to enough select board meetings, let's see, so there's a motion, and then the second, and then
And
there's,
then
and
we
there's
call
a
the
vote.
question and vote.
Yeah. Uh,
I would really like to see the order of magnitude that we're talking here about production and
Right,
how much Bristol uses and
okay.
Let's chase that down.
what
Okay.
other segments of Bristol could benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, there isn't, I mean, there's not a lot you can do with that site. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the
I
state
wouldn't think
is
so.
making those preferred sites.
Right.
You know, it's a preferred site over the other system that they want to put in on 116, the 150 kilowatt array. You know, they're asking us to look at that and give them permission and make it a preferred site. But, you know, I don't know if we can look at that and do that, given that given that there's this site, which is already classified as a preferred site, so.
It'd be
So we-
interesting in the next couple of days to walk down there. And we're gonna have a sunny day this weekend.
Right.
And stand, go down there a couple of times and see, where the sun goes through.
Right.
Because it's a pretty good hill there.
Yeah,
up
and there are
towards the
trees
high
all
school.
around it.
Yeah,
This is the time to see it at its lowest.
that's right,
Must be the least.
that's right.
Right.
Couple of days, it's,
Oh yeah, right now the sun's just about stalled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what is it, the 21st is the shortest
Right.
day of the year.
Friday.
Did we vote?
Yeah.
We did not vote. All those in favor of
Proceed as if.
Approaching the town.
approaching the town with regards to permissions for the Greenland Solar to look at
Right.
our energy use with the meters that we have.
Good.
Aye.
Any-
Right? Eight.
Ayes have it. Okay, I can do that.
Section.
And then, since everyone has these details, or if not, I can send them along. we should all look through this and
Yeah.
see.
I
But
would like it
seems-
if they bought Canadian or American.
Yeah, it sounds like they are
Yeah.
aiming for that.
Well, they spot buy them, you know, spot market.
Right.
Chinese, Korean.
I think it sounded like they tried to get a Canadian
Right.
in US, and I think that from what I've seen, just from Ralph and Victor, they seem like a pretty solid, green, caring company. You know, I think they try to do the best and that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's
While-
good
while
to,
maximizing the
good to
profit.
keep
Right.
asking them for,
Yeah, they've gotta
you know,
make it work,
like,
but-
when it gets closer, say,
Well,
hey,
the
we
question would
really
be
care
if we
about
felt
this, you know?
strongly about the
Good.
sourcing of the
Yeah,
panels.
keep
Right.
Coax them in the right
Yeah.
direction.
We
might-
could, we
it
could
might-
urge that.
It might impact
Yeah.
the deal
Right.
a little bit,
There's a big solar panel factory in Buffalo right now.
yeah.
It's producing them.
Okay, so let's move on to our next item,
Um,
which is. Yeah.
Okay. I was just gonna mention, listen, you brought up what else could be done with, like, the benefits of having a solar thing. And
Yeah.
I remember in the VCAN thing, we heard you could get one that would be, supply a, like TKP or whatever, what's it called? Country trailer park, whatever the name of it is. You know, you could get them for a specific, like you can get it for the school, you could get it for a mobile home park. You
Oh,
could
I
get,
see.
there are ways you could use it for what you feel in your community, what you want to use that for. You know what I mean? So,
So the town of Bristol could take over their meters and, or put them on the list.
I mean, you'd have to plan the project that way, I think. From the
Right.
start, you could say, hey, we really feel like we need to help the lower income, whatever, here or here, and you could say, okay, the town is committed to, having a solar array to help that population right there with their electricity.
Oh, I see.
That kind of, so you can do that. That they're talking about that at VCAN. Different people are doing that. They're like, oh, okay, we want to do one for this and for that trailer park, and we want to also have one that's a visual one on cardboards or whatever, so that we can educate people about this too. You know, so there's different purposes you can use different things for.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I would like
Follow
to
it.
pursue
Yeah.
that
That's good.
Yeah.
Good, good.
and see if that can be included in any final package, yes? I know.
What was it?
Well,
No.
could that be another entity, so it could
Right.
qualify for another site? you know?
Right. Because I'm not sure the complexities of what it's producing and how that is then
Yeah.
split up. Does
Yeah.
it have to be because it's part of like the metering thing? Like we know with the school, if we wanted to put that, since it has its own meters,
Yeah.
and then I guess do you assign with this, the one that he's suggesting on the town, would that be assigned to the town? But then can the town divvy up?
Yeah. Well, that's something
Yeah.
to be, yeah,
Fleshed out.
yeah, fleshed out. That's why getting the GMP information where what would be billed, and you only have 500 can go to one.
Right, I know.
You have to figure that out and make sure that everything isn't on one thing for the town, because then you could max it out and not be able to do other projects.
Right.
You know.
Would
So
you
that's-
be able to find out a bit more about that, of what you heard at the VCAN?
Yeah.
About, and
I
maybe
think
what,
so.
like just a couple examples of towns that are maybe.
I mean, they
doing
know
with
it.
that.
I mean, Victor and those guys know this better than I'm ever gonna be able to
Yeah.
figure out.
Okay.
Once he gets it done, they're gonna be able to show us, okay, this is the best way if you're wanting to do a number of things. So they'll be able to
I
tell us
see,
that
okay.
information.
But we would have to maybe recognize certain areas that we'd like to
Yeah.
focus on
Yeah.
as a
So
town.
that's part of our study.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Current business, so let's talk a little bit about the Button Up Hero program. So that's still going on, it wraps up next year, but we've done our part as the hero. And we did 3 events total. First one was very well attended, we had maybe about 35, 40 people come, and about 30 people, I think at that point signed up, or maybe
Yeah.
20, 25.
We had like 16 papers in hand, but we
Yeah.
also gave
And
out
more,
papers.
I think more than
Papers,
that.
yeah.
We
That
then
was a
did,
good one.
so that was good. We then did a mobile home efficiency energy saving workshop at the fire station. That was less attendance. We had one. But I think she was quite grateful. And I was very pleased that she came and we could talk to her about it. And I think we all learned, those of us there, sort of learned actually quite a lot from the presentation, and just the complexities of mobile homes versus stick-built homes, and
Yeah.
the issues that a lot of those people are dealing with.
Yeah.
And also the thing I learned was the availability of resources, you know, that time-sensitive
Right.
circumstance where if it's, I don't know what the period is, 10 or 15
Oh,
years,
right, because you already had work. Yeah.
you know,
10 years.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, it was
and,
10.
Oh, wow.
and unfortunately, people maybe didn't have good work done, or
Right.
there's
Oh.
Right.
things
So
go,
her-
we know, those of us who
Yeah.
own homes,
So she
10
had,
years, things.
so her
fall
trailer was
apart.
like 1976, and she's in the one by the school, and she'd had some work done, probably not, like you said, maybe not as good as it could be, but that then made her ineligible for CVOEO. But I think she's going to talk to Dwight about that. They connected at the end
Yeah,
just
we
to
had
see what
we had
could.
a follow-up.
Yeah, just to see what's going to happen with that. Because a lot of stuff that they were talking about, she immediately recognized, and she seemed quite knowledgeable about her home and about
Yeah.
what needs to be done and what should have been done.
Yeah.
So hopefully Dwight will be able to help her out.
Yeah.
I think, John, she's a perfect candidate for your proposal.
Right.
She's somebody who's falling through the cracks.
Good.
And when I read your proposal, I thought of Cheryl
Mhm.
right away.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll follow up on that. Thank you.
We also then, so we did that event, and then our final one was the Meet the Contractors event. It was another one at Holly Hall, and we had maybe, how many people attended there? Like maybe 12.
About a dozen.
Wasn't huge,
Yeah.
but I think it was all new people we hadn't seen before, and a lot of people signed up. So the total count is, let's see, how many have we gotten so far?
The other thing that went on is I went around and hand gave a ton of information and some things out, and people directly got envelopes and either
Right.
emailed or sent. So even
Right.
if they didn't have come to one of those, just door to door it was like another event in a way, because we ended up getting 46 signed up, and
Yeah,
not 46 came to our, well,
46
46
is
did come to our
amazing.
thing, but.
Right, we actually, so looking at our list here, this is the list I sent today, I think it's 47.
Oh, wow.
So,
And you compare that to some of the other towns
Right.
that are much bigger than we are. and
Yeah.
it's-
So it's about 10% of the total.
yeah.
Really, that's great.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah. So I think that worked really well. So I have the list and I'll send it to everyone. And they have the sheet in terms of us following up. Once they've done the contractor sort of walkthrough. I know that, so Silver Maple Construction, they've been doing it. And Harvester has pushed everything off just because of their busy schedule to January. That's where they're gonna start doing their walkthrough. So, I think after mid-January, or maybe end of January, we'll start following up with people to see if they were going to be exploring and actually going through with some of the work that maybe that's been suggested. And we've got a whole sheet about
Yeah,
that.
and I think we should be ready with, that kind of information, like the heat saver loan, and we need to be up on it enough to be able to help or support people, I
Okay.
think. That kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
But I think that was pretty darn successful.
Yep,
Yeah, it was. It was worth our doing.
Yeah, I think so. I think just the education part of it for us as well, I think was really beneficial, at least for me. And just sort of getting our group out there to the Bristol public, I think is nice. Maybe who hadn't heard enough from us or as much from us in those last few years.
Yeah.
At least by doing this, it does seem like we're back and
Yeah.
re-energized and
So do we want to just make some of these things an annual event, like we will always be at the Harvest Festival with
Yes,
information,
I think
that
so.
kind of thing?
Yeah.
that's great. With
Yeah, it's a
whatever
good
the
time of
latest
year
thing
for
is that we're
people to
doing, yeah.
Start thinking about putting it up.
Right.
we can do this year after year after year, you know, it's not like we just,
Right.
because we did it once, we don't do it again.
We're gonna have to.
Yeah,
I mean,
we've got a lot of houses to
Yeah.
weatherize in this town.
I'll say.
Yeah.
How many are there?
We learned the number last night, but
Well,
I forgot.
it was a survey, and it was
Sure.
like 1,700.
Yeah,
But that was a 2015 survey, and we don't know what
yeah,
the
it was
size.
iffy, yeah,
Yeah.
it was not necessarily exact. There was some, yeah,
Well, talking to Chris today about the just the workshop that we've done for the mobile home, he says it's probably about 100 in Bristol,
100 mobile homes.
in the various parks and in just other areas
Yeah,
that
yeah,
have you know, sections of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just 100 for mobile homes, and then
yeah,
the rest for normal stick-built homes. So, yeah, it's a good amount.
yeah, yeah, we should figure out, you learned more because you were at that one. I didn't learn what would be best how best to help.
It all depends on the
encourage.
age of the house and
Yeah.
and how it was made. I mean,
Okay.
they're depending on the year it was made, they're
Yeah.
quite different.
Yeah.
But yeah, completely different
Yeah.
than a stick-built house.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Not a lot of room for blowing in insulation,
No.
that's for sure.
No, and getting underneath.
That's nasty. I
Yeah.
spent so much time crawling around underneath mobile homes.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah.
They're really coming out with some much better ones these days.
Right.
Newer ones are pretty fabulous.
Yeah, but they're also $150,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, did that include the foundation? Do you remember in that
I don't think so.
presentation?
I think that was extra.
Yeah.
At least the Vermonts. I think part of it's just construction costs and
Yeah.
to go to net zero with one of those.
So
Um,
this says 1,557 homes, which is,
Okay.
you know, who knows?
Right.
They're kind of suspect, the figures.
The population,
No, the number of homes, 1,557, that's
Yeah.
hard to believe with 3,800 people.
Right.
You know, it's
True.
well, I
It's a
don't
bit
know,
of a
how many
lot.
people per house is that?
Yeah, yeah, it's only, 2 point something.
Oh, yeah. And there's some houses that have a lot of apartments,
Yeah.
Right.
a lot of people in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else for the button up? People want to discuss?
Efficiency Vermont must be happy.
They seem to be. I think we're pretty successful. Given the size of the town, I mean, there were other smaller towns on there that were comparable to us that,
Yeah, they didn't do anywhere near
yeah,
as well.
I think our activism was well received.
There are incentives too, I think, you know.
Yeah. Next item is the town energy planning element pilot, which is essentially the enhanced energy plan. So myself and Richard and Sally were at the meeting last night. We met with 2 members of the planning commission and also a gentleman from the regional planning commission who's sort of spearheading that project, Andrew. And essentially it was just sort of starting the process. He's done a lot of work already. He's worked with a couple other towns. He's fairly new to this though. And he presented a document to us, which is sort of the Bristol Energy Plan. It's taking a lot of what's in the current town plan and sort of, and I would say sort of filling that out to sort of meet the state requirements or the county requirements. So we were there an hour and a half, and we sort of had a broad view of the energy plan, and I'll share a Google folder with everyone so they can look at that. And we just sort of looked through what he'd written. He had a bunch of stuff that was highlighted just in terms of wording and terminology, but essentially it's just the next, 6 months. We'll meet every month and just spend sort of time looking at that and looking at the wording. And we need to decide whether it's going to be an appendix to the town plan, since the town plan is being updated now by the planning commission, or if it would just be, this would just go in as a full section, and our energy plan, which is maybe 2 or 3 pages, would then become 23, or whatever that document was. And I think a lot of us felt that just being part of the town plan would be beneficial, just to have a single document where you could look at, everything that we are hoping to accomplish in the next 30 or 40 years.
I also thought by looking at that, it seemed like a number of the things that were in there could be appendixes too, could be part of it, an appendix. You know, like, because there are a lot of things that we're comparing year to year to year. Maybe it's not, but maybe it is good to just have it all in one if it makes it. But I mean, if it
Well, I think-
wouldn't make their format, then there would probably be ways to put the
Like
most important part in there.
The goals, policies, and actions.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, those
could
for
go
sure
into
would
the
be
town
solid
plan.
in
I
there.
see.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah,
if you
that's
want to look at the
interesting.
graphs for,
Right. that's
you know,
true.
maybe all the graphs aren't in, they're in a separate,
Yeah, because there's a lot of detail, a lot of maps in terms
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
And all the
what the
maps, yeah.
state's recommending
Yeah.
for preferred areas, for wind or for solar. Yeah, there's a lot of details that we have to
Yeah.
look through.
yeah.
But a lot of it is already sort of, it greatly expands on what we have in the energy plan already, and, you know, a lot of that needs to be updated with better terminology and more specific sort of goals and policies.
Yeah.
But I think he seemed like, said we're off to a good start. So we'll just be
If
chipping
we
away
got
at that.
farther than he was expecting.
Right. So that was good.
Yeah.
Committee members. So I talked to Dave Cobb is building a house, and so he said he wasn't going to be available for the next few meetings. I emailed him and asked him if he would be interested in maybe just having an advisor role versus a committee member role, because I'm trying to keep the committees active, and he said that was fine with him. So I'd like to find someone to replace Dave as a committee member. They'd have to interview with the select board, and we'd officially take Dave off. I don't know what the official way of doing that, since it's a 3-year term, if that's just changed, or if he needs to write a letter or whatever. But if anyone has,
Is it just temporary or?
well, I don't know. I'm not sure. He just said he's not going to be able to attend for the next few months because he has other priorities. And I just didn't want to lose momentum in terms of our group. And so, I mean, we could do it as a temporary thing, but then, I don't know. It would have to be up to you what people thought.
Do we have a certain number that we can have on it?
It's supposed to be
I think we're supposed to be 7 and we only have 6, don't we?
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so we're already down 1. So we would need to find 2
Yes.
if Dave wanted to be in the advisor's place instead.
When I knew that we had 6 and need another for 7, I talked to John Moyer.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny, his name came up to me too, I mean,
Yeah, he was very interested
huh,
and said, you know, I'm pretty busy right now, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But I think if BEC were to formally invite him, I believe he would
Okay.
join.
All right. Yeah, I know.
That'd
John.
be cool.
I can write him a
Yeah.
letter. Okay, so
I think it would then, and once that happened, would the select board, did they put out, hey, we're looking for energy committee members?
no, we can. Well, they can do it, or we can do it ourselves.
Yeah,
It's
and they'd have to just go through an interview or something.
they'd have
it's better that we do it.
Yes, they still have to interview,
Yeah.
though there's question that the Conservation Commission members in the past haven't had to interview with the select board.
Oh.
Right.
And so I don't know why
Okay.
one committee is different than another. I don't know if it's commission versus committee, or if it's just that's the way that you guys fly under the radar in terms of, but Ken for Conservation Commission just put out a thing on Front Porch Forum looking for new members, and he's
Yeah.
the chair of that, so I could do the same thing. And I think it's less work for the town staff, and to do, I think the better. You know, we can handle that. So I could officially invite John to see if he's interested. I know he's busy with 22 Main, but I think he'd be a good person and have a fairly good perspective. I mean, he's very long-term thinker in terms
Yeah.
of energy, in terms
Yeah,
of
exactly.
building and
It was
you
good
know.
conversations, yeah.
Yeah.
Just busy.
The idea of knowing about buildings and stuff too, buildings and energy, he knows a lot about.
Yeah, I mean, he's not in construction, but he has a lot of experience. I mean,
Yeah.
we have your experience too, but there's also, I was thinking of, I don't know, it has to be Bristol residents that are on our committees?
think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I was thinking of just spending time with Nate and his knowledge, and just the fact that he's deep in that, but I think he's Lincoln. But I don't know if there's anyone else in our community that sort of is working with companies that are actively building or renovating, or,
Yeah.
you know, because that could be a useful thing to have
Yeah.
too. But I think, yeah, if you have any suggestions for new members, people that might be interested, I think we should go forth and maybe put Dave in an advisory role and see if he's interested in coming back. Because initially when I came on board and it was sort of the getting it back together, he said that he would be advisory, but he would do it if he had to.
Yeah,
Be a board member, and I think he was sort of, we asked him to be that just because to fill our numbers.
Yeah,
But then he got busy again, so
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like he has to be forced back to the committee, you know, because he's
Yeah,
put a
he's
lot
got
into it
a lot
already
going.
over the number of years. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, if you have any suggestions, I'll reach out to John and invite him, and then if anyone else has any suggestions, let me know.
This is funny, I was just looking at this under transportation, up above they were saying 1,700 houses.
Yep.
Yeah, down here it says, since we know Bristol has 496 households.
6. Where does
So-
that come from?
I don't know. So what,
Everybody's related.
They're all McCormick's.
yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, so that's committee members, and now let's move on to the work that John's been doing.
All right. Okay. Well, I think we probably know that the Climate Action Commission report is now final, and among its 53 recommendations, one of its paramount recommendations is accelerate weatherization. But the document really didn't describe how, in fact, resources would be made available to accelerate weatherization. And I think it would be a bit of a stretch to see the Appropriations Committee appropriate new $10 million plus for low-income weatherization. When I learned just about 5 days ago that the elected representatives were going to brief us at the bakery tomorrow evening, I said, what a marvelous opportunity. We will have them talking about what they're going to do in the legislature, and we can bring up Bristol Energy Committee's strong focus on weatherization and what we've achieved. Now, how do we get across the goal line? So I went to the Vermont legislator webpage, and I got about 9 bills from the 17-18 session that were related to weatherization or carbon fees, carbon taxes. So I pretty much pulled, in some cases word for word, out of these pieces of legislation to create the weatherization fund, and it would be run by a 2 cent per gallon increase in sale of fuels, all fuels. And the Secretary of Taxes collects fees, so that would be the point person who would derive the funds from the distributor, and not the customer, the distributor. And that money accrued could then be directed to the OEOs across the state, because they do, just as you helped me understand many weeks ago, that OEOs do provide grants for weatherization. And that's why we got Dwight to come and brief us, etc. But he said, you know, I have two real barriers. One is I don't have enough money, and I don't have enough workers.
Right.
So I included also a piece of legislation that was introduced last year to create a workforce training program for weatherization. Okay? But it went nowhere. So I included that in a separate title of this bill. If we all agree, we could take this draft bill, and it's pretty ready for legislative council. See, I used to do this in Washington. I actually wrote legislation.
Looks like
It's
it.
now in the Constitution. So, do that. We could actually ask the 2 representatives, that is Senator Bray and Caleb, if they would stay for a moment at the end of the proceedings, and then we could approach them and say, we really do want you to consider introducing this bill, and we are going to lobby it to its
Yeah.
enactment.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a one-time chance,
Right.
and I think these two representatives, well, Bray, chairman of the Energy Committee,
Right.
Certainly.
He's a Senate, and then the reps are Mari and Caleb.
yes, yes. And I didn't address Marie, but I've had a long conversation with Caleb about a variety of things related to Carmen. And he agreed that whatever is going to be done to increase the cost of fuels, the net result has to be reducing carbon. And he said, you're right, you know, earlier talks about dividends and whatever. What the dividend check recipient does with that money is pay credit cards, go to Las Vegas, whatever. Whereas this, at 2 cents a gallon, goes right into a heat pump, automatic. So if we have approval, I'd like to take that next step, and at the briefings tomorrow, I can just introduce the conversation to them both. What do you intend to do to accelerate weatherization? And I'm sure they'll say, well, we're going to work on it.
Right.
And we say, well, we have a proposal that we'd like to discuss with you at the conclusion. And I think we would. Caleb's open to it.
Okay.
Is it good to go from scratch, or would it be a better angle to go off the existing, because everything in there already exists?
No, it doesn't exist. This
The
stuff
weather, I mean, the Weatherization Trust Fund exists, which is paid for by a 1.5% tax on
Sure,
heating
but
fuel.
what it doesn't do is generate enough money. It's pretty limited, about $8 million.
Right.
And this 2 cents a gallon would produce $12 million and devoted entirely to grants and to low-income families.
But it's new, and it's a fee. It sends
Yeah.
Phil Scott's little brain to
But of course, and that's where we have to develop a narrative that Governor Scott will say, you know, I can go along with this because it addresses affordability, it addresses reducing carbon dioxide, and it sounds common sense. It's going to take some lobbying, but I've already got a conversation going with Peter Walk, who said, you know, we really should talk about this. So I've been kind of feeling out people up in the food chain who could say to Governor Scott, you know, this is a win-win for you. Of course, he's going to jump all over the fee, but there's no other way to do it except to take it out of the Treasury, and that means raising taxes or cutting programs. Now, this is... oil sold to $46 a barrel the other day, and that's down from about $90 a
Right,
barrel
right.
about a
Yeah.
month ago. So the fluidity
This is the time
of
to do
oil
it. Yes.
means
No, I just
2%,
read-
2 cents a gallon, is something like 0.07%
Seven.
of the cost of that gallon. Anyway, it's a lobbying effort.
Did I hear this morning that Reggie is considering transportation?
Oh, in time they will.
Or, I mean, this morning
yeah.
it was on the news.
It's a probably, I really badgered people to try it in the last
Yeah, I know.
stakeholders round, and it just didn't fly. I would say in about 5 years, because this president is going for 4 years, so in 5 years, they'll start the stakeholders meeting again, and this will be front and center. And Pennsylvania might be in the Reggie by then,
Yeah,
so it's a real promising.
I thought it was sooner than that they were looking at it.
No, they're looking,
now.
that's true, they're looking.
But
And
they can't.
also, I should mention that because the Joint Fiscal Office has RFP'd to Resources for the Future in Washington to write the carbon, price on carbon report, that Resources for the Future report, and I know these folks in Washington, they're really quality people, it will take the better, for probably all of the 2019 session to just review it, to review it, to have public comment, to have committee hearings. And that's the window where really aggressive effort to move this legislation, we could have it probably go to the governor's desk in the first session, in the 2019 session. That'd be my goal.
All right.
So do we take the step?
So you had a couple
Yeah.
questions.
You
Sally.
may have some questions.
Yeah, I mean, it was, my questions were about, which might not really be important at this point now that I'm hearing more about it. You know, you talked about creating the weatherization fund here in section 4, and then section 5 is implementation. And it never seemed to talk about weatherization to me. It talked about what the commissioner of taxes gets money, does all this stuff, and then the director of office of OEO.
It's in the statement of purpose.
Okay.
Global atmospheric CO2 emissions impact, etc. Funds derived by the Commissioner of Taxes will be applied to providing grants to weatherized homes of low-income families.
Okay, great. So that's all that money can do is be grants for low-income weatherization.
Weatherization.
Okay,
yeah.
great. That's fabulous. Because in this implementation, I got kind of confused because it say, oh, director can do this, do that, do all this stuff
Yeah.
with that money. It seemed like, and I was like, wait a second, isn't this supposed to be just weatherization?
Well,
You're
can-
just saying they can connect with all these different services in order to help it. Is that what all these are?
Well,
Like, the
what-
director shall provide funds to support the weatherization efforts,
This
and then a range of services and activities.
this can only be considered a draft
Okay,
because the legislator, before they introduce it, has to take it to legislative council. So they're gonna look through this and say, well, you know,
okay,
I don't like this part, I want that, I want some other part. But then the legislative council puts it into bill language,
okay,
at which point then everyone can say, well, that's what it's intended to do, and this is how the resources will be raised.
okay,
So
good.
we're all talking off the same page. Right now, this is just a,
Yeah. Starter and ignite,
Oh, yeah.
something to ignite.
this is the key,
process.
this is the key, right? The key and the ignition is
That's great.
the legislators.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's great. I like
Okay,
it. Love it.
Um,
Sorry for holding up
No,
earlier,
all
but
right.
I'm really glad you were here to talk about it
Yes,
more.
and I-
Really, it makes sense.
So all those in favor for John to pursue this with tomorrow evening, sort of present it?
Yeah. Hi.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good,
Okay.
thank you,
Great.
okay.
I hopefully will attend tomorrow. Do you want anyone else from the Energy Committee to be there in terms of offering support, or
It,
how would you like to do that?
well, I don't want to compel anyone to go to this session tomorrow night, so
This-
if anyone has an interest in going, it could be fun, actually,
Yeah.
to hear what Caleb and Marie have in mind, you know, what committees they want to be on, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is exactly the event?
Well, the Democratic Party is inviting the legislators from Addison 4,
Yeah.
and I think 5 as well, but Addison 4. So it will be, as I said, Braid and Marie and Caleb, and another person, I can't recall the name, I think it's a Republican actually, but nonetheless, they'll all be giving...
Ruth Hardy?
Pardon?
Ruth Hardy, is she coming?
I'm sorry, I can't...
Yeah.
Ruth
She's-
Hardy?
Yeah, she's the other.
But it's
Senator.
their opportunity to describe all the great things they're gonna do.
Okay, and that's at the Bristol Cliffs Cafe
6:30.
In the bakery. yeah.
at 6:30.
Yeah, I'd like to go. I have 2 other meetings that
Yeah.
night. So.
I'm supposed to go somewhere else too, but I think I might choose to go to this
Yeah.
instead.
They called it a community open house with electeds.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd really good at that.
That starts at
6:30 tomorrow evening, 6:30 to 8 p.m. Yeah, join Caleb, Mari, and other Addison County elected folks for warm drinks, light fare, and each other's company. We'll welcome the return to the sun and an upcoming year of working together. If you're so moved, bring your musical instruments. And that was sent out by Wendy Wilson.
And that's tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah.
That's great, Wendy.
20th.
Yeah.
Wendy there. Yeah.
Yes.
I think Mari's gonna really love this.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
She's,
That's her thing.
They
Okay.
can't wait.
So you might.
Yeah, I think,
attend.
well, I mean, I was invited to do something else, but I think I do want to be here.
Okay.
I think it'll be
Yeah.
good.
All right. So there should be at least hopefully 3 of us.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, Any other things we need to talk about? That's the end of my agenda altogether.
Did we put to sleep the recharge stations?
Currently, yes. The deadline passed in terms of that first round.
Right.
And there were still a lot of questions about the application and the sort of the hoops that the town would need to jump through. We didn't get the information we needed in time to sort of present from Bristol Electronics. David's sort of been working with them to get those details, and some of it was just equipment was changing. Their suppliers that they worked with, actual equipment had been sort of being updated, so they didn't have details. But there was a lot of sort of, it's a very lengthy kind of
It's a
grant.
It's
And
a
so-
Rubik's Cube
Yeah.
program. And
Yeah.
it's so complicated.
Right. So we were gonna hold off until the next round, and I've heard from a couple people that they're supposedly gonna offer more help for communities to sort of
Should've done
make the
that
process a
again.
little bit easier. So I think
Yeah,
we're gonna
most
we're gonna
communities are doing the same.
Yeah.
thing.
yeah, I think we're gonna put that in the back burner and just revisit it when they announce the second round
Good.
and see what happens then. Anything else?
I think we were gonna okay the minutes. Do we have to do that here, or do we don't? We just do it online?
Oh, did I take off? Oh, yeah, I didn't do the minutes. I apologize. Let's okay the minutes. Did everyone have a chance to look through them? I think they were fine.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I move we accept them.
Okay.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's getting so official in this committee. I want a less official committee.
That can be arranged.
Well, I don't know if you're gonna wanna.
We're pretty
I know.
unofficial.
I mean, I think
Careful what
it's
you wish.
what we pick. You know, if we're just voting and everyone just votes. So, our next meeting is January 16th. I will talk to Victor in terms of getting permission for the meters to be read for the town to sort of explore that. I'll also send details of Mount Abe, the potential for parking lot structure implementation or the roof. I mean, Mount Abe's gonna go through their renovation, whatever that might be. And
It's a long process.
I think solar is already a part of that plan, or at least is being discussed, right? And so I'd like to see the parking lot. I mean, that's just a huge expanse, but it's whether like it's cost effective enough to put a whole bunch of stuff there to build out to support the panels versus having a roof already there.
I'm curious, do they do it as a carport type structure, or do they do it
Yeah.
in between rows?
I think it's a carport,
Carport.
yeah,
Carport.
which is beneficial to us too. If you
Yeah.
happen to scrape up your car, you know.
Yeah, and less plowing.
Yeah.
I've seen a few of them scattered about, they're nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great. I like one in my driveway.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
All right.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention something in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
conversation with Caleb. He said that he's going to brief the Starksboro
Oh, right.
Energy Committee on January 7th. And I said, I was asking him if he might come over to brief us. And he said, no, I'm going to be doing it on the 7th. And the thought occurred to me, maybe we could be invited to join Starksboro. It's a good chance to really meet them and
Yeah.
know that
Yeah.
we're...
I went
That's
to
a good
another
idea.
Starksboro meeting a while back. It was great. They are really energized.
Good, yeah.
It would be great to go
And
there.
Richard Fazey and
Yeah.
company, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we're in agreement, maybe we could make that a energy committee project.
Okay.
Sure.
That was January 7th.
January 7th, yeah. Well, he'll be delighted.
Okay.
Where do they meet?
Pardon?
Where do
They met
meet?
at the library last time. I don't know if that's where they always meet or what.
I can contact Caleb and say that we agreed that we would like to
We'd
attend
like to-
when and where.
Yeah, great.
Good, all right, great. And we can carpool if we want.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Anything else?
You mentioned something about sending formal invitation to John. That was the
Yeah.
other thing you mentioned. Lawyers.
John Moores, that sending Victor details on Mount Abe, and then the permission to have the meters be looked at.
Yeah.
That was what I had.
Yeah.
And then obviously we'll have our sort of follow-ups with the button-up program and what we need to be and how involved we need to be with those, that group, and then any sort of wrap-up.
Yeah, I think wrap up's a while down the road.
Yeah.
And there's maybe celebratory something in there.
Yeah, I think
Like,
something,
having
uh,
some kind of thing to bring people together.
Yeah. Okay,
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
all right. All right. I think we're all done.
Nice job, nice
Thank you.
meeting. A lot
Yeah,
of good
well,
stuff.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
I'm gonna have to take back that
Yeah,
hill.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I really appreciate you coming to this meeting. I really just feel better about.
Just be a hallway of the Christmas.
Right on schedule.